Hey, I'm Melissa.
And I'm Whitney.
We started this true crime podcast over a glass of wine and quickly turned from true crime listeners into true crime advocates.
So get comfy, pop a cork, and grab a glass because we have work to do.
This is Cults, Crimes, and Cabernet.
Some content may be unsuitable for sensitive listeners. Discretion is advised.
Happy Monday.
Happy Monday and happy end of April. Actually, today I have to shout out happy anniversary to my sister and Chris.
Oh, happy anniversary, Leah and Chris.
We have a lot of Chris's in our lives.
In the 80s, I swear every other kid was named Chris.
Basically, and Ashley.
Yes.
Yeah.
Exactly.
All right. What's happening?
I don't know. April is it's kind of one of those blah months. Nothing happens in April. I mean, we did go on a trip, but typically April is just blah. So I'm ready for May. Summer lovin'.
Yep. We did have a good time on our trip. I know that we talked about it last week a little bit, but we were able to network and hang out with our friends, go on a Merlot Files case. It was the ultimate weekend of getting some things planned out for some future changes that y'all will learn about eventually.
Yes. Once we figure out those changes.
Yes.
What I found interesting is we pretty much walked around a slightly abandoned mall looking for a Kmart that was there in the 90s. That was difficult.
It was. And it was a bit spooky.
Yeah. Flickering lights.
I really feel like we needed one of our paranormal podcast friends there with us. I think that Brandon from Southern Gothic would have really gotten a kick out of it.
Oh my God, yes. And one of the, what do they call them? The store areas was a magic show. That was the theater, I guess.
Yeah.
It was very strange. The whole thing.
Malls are dying on America because
they are.
Amazon.
Yes. And especially malls that had a Kmart in them at one point.
Very true. Again,
those are.
Kmart is also dying if it's not already dead because, again, Amazon. Speaking of Amazon, check out that transition.
Oh, shoot. That was a good one. Impressive. Because I already forgot we were going to talk about Amazon.
Guess what we have? We have an Amazon storefront now. And we
do
really know what it means, but we're going to share it with you guys with all of our favorite stuff. We've got wine stuff. We've got travel stuff. We've got mom stuff.
We love it when we pull up the Venn diagram and list all of our favorite things, and so many of them overlap into being a mom and drinking wine. Whitney and I thought, especially when we buy things on Amazon, we're like, hey, other people may want to buy these products because they're some of our favorites. So now you will all have that opportunity. Lucky you guys.
Yes. And, we talk about a lot of the things we buy on Amazon. I swear I send Melissa 5 Amazon links a day and she sends me like 5 a week.
Yeah, it's awesome. Amazon has the coolest stuff. And if you are on TikTok and you see, Amazon finds, that's pretty much what it's going to be. But it's going to be stuff that we like.
Exactly.
That's handy.
So, that being said, check it out. I'll put the link in the show notes. And let's get into summer stuff.
Yes. I was going to say what wine, but wine, guys, we might have to forego hardcore wine for a bit because it's just so hot.
It is. And wine can get heavy. So we've been talking a lot about spritzers and seltzers and lighter drinks that we like to have. When we were on the beach, we drank a lot of seltzers instead of wine. And so today I've got seltzers. Sorry, guys.
That's fine. It's the end of the school year. We're barely making it day in, day out. So forgive us. But wine isn't what we're all about anyways.
Nope.
Let's jump into your case.
Yeah.
New Jersey.
New Jersey. I'm taking you to Burlington, New Jersey, which is a suburb of Philadelphia with just under 10,000 people that live there now. It was originally incorporated as a city in 1693 and then again,
Ah,
so long ago, right? And then again, after America's independence, it was reincorporated in 1784. Burlington Coat Factory, which I feel every mother knows about because of their affordable prices on literally everything, was founded in 1924 when a warehouse was purchased in the outskirts of the city and it sold discounted coats and outerwear. Do you remember when Burlington Coat only sold coats? Because I do. I am that old.
I do not, but it could be maybe where I grew up. I never saw a Burlington until I was probably like 17 or 18 years old. And when I went into that one, it had more than coats. I was shocked because I thought it was only gonna have coats.
That's what you went for? You needed a jacket because it was wintertime, and then you were surprised?
Yes, yes, I was. So much so that I remembered that 20 something years ago or 20 something years later.
Yeah, we're not gonna do math on that.
Yeah. Close enough.
Yep. The flagship store remained here until 2008 when a new site was acquired. The largest blueberries in the world were developed and raised in this county.
Oh, how big are we talking?
I don't know, it just said the largest. I don't know the blueberry scale, but
Oh.
big blueberries. Also, the cranberry was found growing wild here when the first settlers arrived. I always think it's so crazy when they flood fields for
The
cranberries
bog?
because they float. Yes. Yeah.
I know. And thank you, Ocean Spray, for teaching me how cranberries grow.
Yes. Call us for sponsorships. We do like cranberry juice. According to Neighborhood Scout, Burlington, New Jersey has a crime index of 31. And your chance of becoming a victim of violent crime is 1 in 369, which is higher than the 1 in 595 in all of New Jersey. But it's
Okay.
still well below the national median. So I'll take it.
And yeah, that seems pretty safe to me compared to most places we look up.
Crimes are much more likely in this area, with the chances being 1 in 77 in Burlington. So people are after your property here.
Like, what describes property? Does that mean stealing a car?
Mm-hmm.
That would be a
Or
property crime.
theft. Theft is a property crime. Violent crime is murder, rape,
Okay.
physical
So
harm.
anything done to like a person,
Mhm.
violence. Gotcha.
In 1974, when my case took place, crime rates were much higher, more than double the crime rates now, which is uncommon for us. Usually you see it go the other way.
Yes.
There are many well-known events that happened in the 1970s. John Wayne Gacy, if you haven't listened to Defense Diaries, Watergate, Ted Bundy, Zodiac, and even Jonestown all happened in the 70s. But in the town of Burlington, the disappearance of a 14-year-old freckled-faced young girl tore a family apart. Margaret Ellen Fox was the only girl in a family of 8. Her brown hair hung just below her shoulders and had an auburn reddish tint. She had lost 2 of her top right teeth, and you could tell she was just coming into her femininity. Like many young girls, she loved horses, had just begun playing the piano, and was part of a stable yet somewhat strict home. Her family were devoted Catholics, and her father was the town plumber. Margaret loved to help around the house and was wanting to start earning her own money so that maybe she could purchase clothes, headbands, accessories, maybe even be able to pay for the horseback riding lessons, as sometimes that fell outside of the family's budget. Doing those girly things as you're coming into your teen years.
We will never know about those things with a daughter.
It's true.
This is just so adorable, though. I literally can picture her.
Knowing that Margaret was a responsible young girl, and after many conversations and many hours of pleading, her parents finally allowed her to place an ad in the local newspaper as a babysitter along with her 11-year-old cousin, Lynn. The ad read, "Babysitters," in all caps. "Experienced teen girls, love kids, work at your house, call," and then listed both of the girls' phone numbers. It ran for the first time on June 18th, 1974. Now, I can see it on your face that this is the first red flag.
I know that this is how people got jobs or side hustles back in the day, but I am already angry for this little girl.
The very next day, Lynn received a call for a potential client by the name of John Marshall. He was requesting a babysitter for his 5-year-old son from 9:30 a.m. to 1:30 p.m. each day, and he offered her $40 a week plus bus fare, and that either him or his wife would bring her home around 2 to 2:30 each day. But she would need to travel from Burlington, New Jersey, the 7 miles by bus over to Mount Holly to his home to watch his son. John Marshall said he would pick her up from the bus station, take her to his house to watch his son, and then would return her home after his shift. He said he had a pool in the backyard and a swing set and plenty of activities to keep them busy throughout the day. Lynn's parents would not let her take this job as she was only 11, and they weren't comfortable with that trip.
Well, okay, good for them, because I know back in the day, parents are like, "You'll be fine."
Get outside till the streetlights come on.
Yeah, just go knock on doors, you'll find
Mhm.
someone. So I'm really glad that they wouldn't let her, but that probably ended up not being a good thing.
The opportunity was passed on to Margaret, and as she had proven herself as a responsible teen, and after Margaret's father had spoken with Mr. Marshall, they agreed. He took down the man's name and phone number and recalled thinking that the man had to have been between 35 to 40 based on his voice and kind of his dialect and the way he spoke. There was no real red flags here. Margaret and John had made plans to meet in person before the first day of work just to get that awkward, "Hey, how are you? Here's our rules," kind of out of the way. But for some reason, this meeting would be rescheduled several times, and that first day of employment arrived before they could meet in person.
And as a parent, I would also want to meet the person that's going to be with my child most of the day. So not only for her, but for the family.
Exactly. And maybe just make sure that your kid and the babysitter are going to get along.
Mhm.
June 24th, 1974 would be the first day of employment. And after reviewing a bus schedule and speaking with John again, they made a plan for Margaret to take the bus that leaves just a couple of blocks from the family's home and to get off of the bus at the stop closest to the corner of Mill and High Streets once she got to Mount Holly. John told Margaret that his wife would pick her up in a red Volkswagen and then drive her to their home. Excited for her first true day of employment, she woke up early and got ready. She dressed in a light blue, long-sleeved blouse with a floral pattern, maroon jeans with a yellow patch on one knee, a white and black checkered waist-length jacket, brown sandals with a heel strap, and she had her gold-rimmed hexagonal glasses on. She grabbed her brown bag, stuffed her bathing suit inside, threw in her glasses case that had a picture of Huckleberry Hound on it, and bounced out the door with her younger brother, Joseph.
Well, first of all, she's a fashionista, and you described the time period perfectly with that.
It's a very on point for the decade.
Yes.
The two walk to the bus stop a couple of blocks away and wait for the bus to arrive. It comes rolling up to a stop around 8:45 a.m., and Margaret boards, waving goodbye to her brother. She had told her parents that she would call when she arrived, but when the call did not come in, her father assumed that she was just overly excited and forgot. He did try to call that number that was left, but no answer came, and perhaps they were outside already or walking through her day's events and weren't able to answer the phone at the time. When she did not return around the time frame she was expected home, her mother grew weary. She calls the number again left by Margaret that was supposed to be John's residence, and listened to the phone continue to ring over and over and over. It wasn't until a passerby decided to pick up a ringing phone that they learned it was a payphone. Lumberton, New Jersey, 2.2 miles from where Margaret was supposed to exit the bus on Route 38.
This is terrifying and the worst nightmare for any parent.
As most concerned parents, they struck out and started searching themselves. And when they had no luck in finding any sign of her, they went to the police department shortly after midnight to file an official report. The Burlington City Police Department set out to investigate, but very little information came in. And after speaking with the family, they came to the consensus that Margaret was not a runaway. And this is very surprising to me, as that's the typical go-to. They canvassed the surrounding areas as well as the bus that Margaret was supposed to take. The few witnesses they were able to talk to had mentioned that they had seen her on the bus and that she was clearly happy and excited to be on her way to her first real job. They said she was smiling from ear to ear. One said they saw Margaret talking to a young man in a red sports car after departing the bus near Mill and High Streets. This was her intended stop, and John Marshall did say they would pick her up at that stop. He even said they drove a red Volkswagen. Could the sports car be misconstrued for a Volkswagen? Or maybe when Margaret said it was a Volkswagen, it was actually a different kind of car and she was just confused. She's 14. Maybe she doesn't know cars.
Exactly. I definitely think it is a viable suspect or a viable lead.
In an attempt to locate John Marshall, a search for the name was completed, but there was a historical significance to this name. An attorney named Jonathan F. Marshall, along with many buildings and other structures, were named after this man throughout the town.
Oh, wow.
This led to many false leads, even more so as John and Marshall are not exactly unique names. The FBI became involved within the first 3 days of her disappearance. They began recording calls that were incoming to the Fox home. And on the evening of June 28, just 4 days after Margaret disappeared, her mother received a call she never wanted in regards to her only daughter.
$10,000 might be a lot of bread, but your daughter's life is the buttered topic.
Who is it?
If you couldn't understand, it said $10,000 is a lot of bread, but your daughter's life is the buttered topping. Margaret's mother says, "Who is this?" before the line disconnects. It was too short to trace, and the following day, June 29th, 1974, the Fox house received one of 2 letters in the mail.
It's a very unique thing to say, I think.
This letter stated word for word exactly what the phone call said. Knowing this occurred in New Jersey, the accent does seem to be geographically representative of the area. In fact, the first time I listened to it, and I've listened to it probably 50 times now, I compared it to Lou Ferrigno. I even sent it to my husband saying, "Doesn't this sound like the guy that played the Incredible Hulk?" And he said it does.
And he would know.
He would. He's a bit of a Hulk expert. It was stated very firm, but not overly demanding. One article postulated that perhaps the caller was reading a script or that it was very well rehearsed because it was not yelled into the phone, it wasn't pushed, it wasn't said angrily, it was clearly stated.
It was very even toned, the whole thing. Just on the point, matter of the fact. There you go.
And it's very, I want to say theatrical. Like the statement alone is theatrical. No one talks about butter on bread as a topping. It's just what you put on bread, especially in the South. I mean, everyone has butter bread with every meal.
Yes, very weird.
The family immediately went to the bank and withdrew the funds for the ransom and waited for further instruction. Now, not all families have liquid funds of that caliber. And it makes me wonder if the kidnapper had knowledge of this family being able to afford this specific ransom, or if it's sheer consequence. $10,000 is a lot of money, especially in the 70s.
Yes. But it's not specific like it was in John Bonet's case, where it's a very specific amount of money. I think $10,000, that's just, oh yeah, give me $10,000.
$10,000 in 1974 is equivalent to $60,000 today.
Oh, wow.
So to me, that's a lot of money.
That's a lot of money. I would not want to give a kidnapper.
2 days later, another letter was received with slight differences. This one said, $10,000 was a lot of bread, and your daughter's life was the buttered topping, along with the signature, so long again, with each letter capitalized. The phrases have switched tenses, going from present tense to past tense. Also, not receiving any instructions for the parents to pay this ransom left the Fox family broken. This phone call would be locked away as evidence. Some of the investigations brought out a person of interest. He was described as a white male with very blue eyes, light blonde or red hair worn in a crew-style cut. He had extremely white teeth and drove a red-orange Volkswagen. Many people law enforcement talked to stated he had spoken with young women and had attempted to pick up several in the Mount Holly area before, but they could never really pinpoint who this person was. The first stall in Margaret's disappearance starts to settle in. Even the media slows the coverage of her story. Over a year later, a 53-year-old convict by the name of Charles Clowbridge confessed to kidnapping Margaret and that he murdered her and disposed of her remains off of a cliff in the Catskill Mountains in New York. Now, this convict later recanted his statement, saying it was a big hoax, and then authorities were able to clear him completely as a suspect. In 1977, police look into a known sex offender who happened to live in Mount Holly area and drove a red Volkswagen, but after he had a solid alibi, he was removed as a person of interest. The second stall in Margaret's disappearance followed for 13 years. That is until the remains of a Jane Doe were found 72 miles away in Atlantic Highlands, New Jersey on December 10, 1988. Having minimal forensic tools compared to now, an artist's composite sketch was created and distributed in 1989, and then a clay reconstruction followed shortly after in 1992. The remains were to be of an unidentified woman between the ages of 15 and 18 years old. She stood between 5 foot 1 inch tall and 5 foot 4 inch tall and weighed between 100 and 200 pounds. The remains were also found wearing brown sandals that were a size 6.5.
I feel like the range of the height and weight is really crappy. And maybe it's the time period. Between 100 and 200 pounds? That's...
They found remains. No one knows how decomposed she was.
That's just crazy. Usually I feel like they usually can do it, like, configure it to like a 20, 30 pound range.
I mean, it depends on bone density.
Yeah.
How decomposed. I mean, if there's no flesh at all and it's just skeleton remains, how do you determine how heavy they were?
That's true. Crazy.
Margaret's name was considered as a potential identity for these remains, but in 1998, she would officially be ruled out with DNA.
Well, mother trucker, I got my hopes up there.
After this potential lead didn't pan out, Margaret's case goes cold. And when I say goes cold, it freezes. 45 years to the day after Margaret disappears, the FBI would release an enhanced version of the ransom phone call I shared, in hopes to spark someone's memory when they hear that voice making demands. Also working with an artist, the FBI released only the second age progression photo showing what Margaret may look like. In 2019, she would have been 56 years old. June 24th, 2023 marks 49 years since Margaret has been seen alive. When she was last seen, she was only 5 foot 2 inches tall. She weighed around 105 pounds. She was missing her 2 top right teeth, wore glasses, had worn a gold charm bracelet and a gold necklace, both with a blue stone on it. No evidence connected to Margaret has ever been found, nor do they have any items that would connect a potential kidnapper. Police firmly believe that Margaret was taken, and the only true suspect they could list was a man with the name of John Marshall that worked at the A&P grocery store near where the payphone was.
What? This is like humongous.
He was ultimately cleared after many interviews, alibi checks, and polygraph tests. Now, while polygraphs aren't the end-all be-all, they believe that a kidnapper would not have used his real name.
Well, unless he's a dumb kidnapper. Maybe someone that knew him and knew that that's where he worked and used his name. Well, oh my gosh. I literally have been on a roller coaster of emotions this whole time. Okay, they found her. They figured out the dirtbag that did this. And then, nope, just kidding. They did not.
Margaret's parents passed away before any answers were given. A $25,000 reward has also been gathered for any information leading to an arrest or conviction of her abductor. Margaret's siblings are still seeking answers for their sister, along with retired Willingboro Police Department detective who's been helping the search since 2017. If you have any information in Margaret Ellen Fox's disappearance, please contact the Burlington City Police Department at 609-386-0262, extension 211, or the Federal Bureau of Investigation, Newark Field Office at 973-792-3000.
Wow.
I will say there is, I don't want to say a lot of information because it's all the same information, but this case alone had more sources than any other case we have ever done.
Wow.
I've read so many news articles. It's all the same information, but it had coverage. It had consistent coverage, especially considering it was the 70s and 80s.
Mm-hmm.
And I cannot believe they can't find her.
I cannot. Oh my gosh. Every week I'm like, this is the worst one I've ever heard. This is so sad.
Just by listening to our content, you too are advocating for justice for these families. Thank you for making a difference in their lives as well.
We want to share a few ways you can support us to continue our mission. You can become a Patreon subscriber for as little as $1 per month, or a simple rate and review on your favorite podcast platform helps us get in front of someone who may know something.
We will continue traveling state by state, seeking justice, because we will be there, no matter where,
no matter who.